In my last speech, I talked about why CPR and first aid should be required for everyone to take. Now, there are some negative aspects to this to what I spoke about. My first thing was that it costs about $25 to take a class for CPR. Well, the unfortunate part is that these CPR classes are not always readily available. It's not like they're able to have every weekend or whenever people actually need them. You know, a lot of people that would be taking these classes are going to be older and have families or jobs or things like that. So not all of these classes are available to them on the weekends, or they're not very convenient. Usually they'll be 2 or 3 days a month, or they'll come every 6 months to teach classes. So it's very, very hard to work your schedule around taking a CPR class, to work it around with your family schedule or whatever you have going on. My next topic was that we talked about high school students being able to take courses in CPR and have it as a requirement for graduation. Well, me being the future teacher that I am, not all high school students are capable of learning CPR first aid. There are some kids that could be special education. There's some kids that may have asthma or things like that that could require them not to be able to perform CPR first aid. So this would hinder them in that aspect, which would I don't know if it'll keep them from graduating, but that's also a negative fact that not all students are able to perform those tasks. Another thing that we talked about was CPR resulting in getting HIV or AIDS. Now, the only way we can get HIV or AIDS transmitted to us is through blood or semen. Now, mouth-to-mouth contact, there has never been a case reported. However, for somebody to feel comfortable in performing CPR on somebody that has HIV or AIDS, it will require a face mask or a little oxygen mask that you put over your mouth. Well, we might not always have those. So in this case, somebody that has HIV or AIDS could really suffer because the person that is certified in CPR may not want to perform CPR on that person just because of their health issue. And that could pose as a problem because I believe that the law is that if you're able to perform CPR or first aid on somebody, you have to do it. And so that could also hurt both the person that is having the issue and also the person that is certified in the CPR. Another thing was that a study found that the increasing time that paramedics and firefighters took to administer CPR from 1 to 3 minutes typically doesn't provide any additional benefit to the victim. With this being said, that I talked about previously that it takes 4 to 6 minutes to a person to start losing the oxygen to their brain. With this going on, it doesn't really necessarily mean that we can actually save that person's life or save that person's functionality. This was according to medindia.net. And so the other thing that I looked at from livestrong.com says that with CPR, it could result in broken bones, internal injuries, vomiting, aspiration, and bodily fluid exposure. Broken bones could include, broken ribs, sternum could be damaged, and this would be because the person that's performing CPR could be pushing too hard, or but they may not know exactly where to push, which could also contribute to the fact that you have to renew your license every couple of years, and if you don't do that, then you may not remember exactly where to perform that motion. Another thing is internal injuries. If a rib is broken, it could puncture a lung. There could be many other things that your bone could have chipped off. There could be quite a bit of things that could happen that could hinder the victim's body, and that's nothing that in retrospect, if the person survives if they are having, if they had a cardiac arrest or something like that, in retrospect, them having broken bones in their body is going to hurt them later on, obviously. Vomiting, aspiration, this could happen while the person performing CPR is doing it, and which is nothing that anybody wants to deal with. And so that's another thing. And also, typically you give CPR while the person's lying on their back. And if a person is vomiting, they can end up choking on their vomit, which leads to tons of other issues, which will require more CPR and more. There could be blockage in the airway. So that's another thing that we've got to pay attention for. And also bodily fluid exposure. This could mean, saliva and things like that. We don't know what has been in people's mouths, to be honest with you. And so I'm sure we don't want to go around and passing germs on to various people. And lastly, it talks about on that same MedIndia website that less than 10% of cardiac arrest victims survive in the U.S. So with that being said, if you have a loved one that had sudden cardiac arrest, their survival rate is typically very low. This is usually because when you're going through cardiac arrest, it's almost like a heart attack. And so if you're trying to perform CPR and it's not effective, then the paramedics are coming in and doing a job that they could have done in the first place on their own and maybe revive that person. So it's a toss-up pretty much. So with that being said, CPR can be very effective, but there are also some extremely, extremely negative negative points about CPR that could really hurt people in the long run, especially those victims that are having those issues. And so, thank you for listening.